Welcome to Ramadan Wrapped. This is the first in our Wrapped series, and we'll be looking at cultural moments and the brands that want to join the party, and indeed the opportunities that these moments present for brands and different organizations. My name is Steve Ween. I'm founder of Distillery, and we pride ourselves on insightfully rich work which delivers results for our clients. And we do this for leading tech and non-profit organizations around the world, from our offices in London, San Francisco, Singapore, and Dubai. I'm really excited that we're co-hosting this live stream today with the awesome team from Friday. It's interactive, so please get your phones out and get ready to vote.
I've got to say, there's nearly 4 million Muslims in the UK. Nothing to panic about. We're good. We like to have fun. That's what we're here, and that's what today's all about. So it's more important than ever before that representation is right and on brand. And that's what we want to help with today. Now, my name is Basit Khan, and I was frustrated with seeing the stereotypical portrayals of Muslims when it came to media, when it came to advertisements, even when it came to engaging with the Muslim community. So I, together with my good friend Adil Husseini, co-founded Friday. We're that awesome team, as Steve rightly said. We're that awesome team. We like to shine a light on the global majority, and we want to help brands around the globe diversify their reach and build authentic connections.
So thank you for joining us, wherever you've joined us from. As we go along, we really want to know what you think. So please add any questions in the comment box. So if you're on LinkedIn, there's the chat section. And if you are joining us from YouTube, you can see in the comment section under the video. So we'll feed those questions, your comments, into the discussion today. And also, Rebecca will be sharing a voting form so we can all vote on what we really enjoy when we're looking at different creative. So before we reveal our Ramadan Wrapped campaigns, I wanted to first introduce the panelists joining Basit to review the ads. First up, there's Adam Kirby, who's creative director at Distillery, and our special guest, Arif Nawaz, who is an award-winning British-Pakistani actor, writer, television, cricket commentator, and my favorite bit, stand-up comedian.
Lots of jokes for you today. That's what's happening. But once we're done hearing from what we think, we're going to hear from Muna Kala Sakrani, who is the creative strategist at Friday, who will talk us through a few of the headlines from our recent survey. Now it's time to sit back, relax, and watch the first of our Ramadan Wrapped campaigns.
Watch out, look around, something's coming, lanterns bright. There's something magic in the night, can't you see it shining bright? The sharing of joy is what we bring. That's the reason it's always the real thing.
Because that was the first ad. That's the Coca-Cola ad, which we were liking. We're joined now by Atif and Adam. Now, I've got to say, I don't know what you guys thought when you saw that. My first thing was I thought I'm watching a Christmas advert. And then I realized, oh, it's actually a Ramadan advert. But it's a very classical Christmas ad, right? So it's just been repurposed, is what I thought.
Yeah, but the big clue was it kept saying Ramadan is coming, Ramadan is coming. So that's when I knew something was up. But it does strike a note of familiarity with their famous Christmas campaign. Atif, what's your impressions?
I thought I was about to watch a new Wes Anderson film for a second, like with the kind of colors and dynamic in that it was sort of like Wes Anderson meets Wallace and Gromit, that kind of vibe. But I'm with Basit. They did have a sort of Christmassy vibe. If I was being overly critical, I'd say it feels a little bit like, let's not deviate too much from that. Let's just, it feels like they could have done a little bit more to make it a bit more specific to Ramadan. I like that they represented various ethnicities and things like that. That's cool. But it just, there was something about it that just made me feel like, well, this is just, it feels like a cut and paste situation with Christmas. Maybe I'm being overly critical, but that's kind of what I thought. But hey, Wes Anderson would love it. He'd consider it a tribute.
Well, yeah, certainly that animation treatment that's in it. I think it was the agency's 8K QA, and it was the mill that executed on it. It does go some of the way to helping with that sticky issue of representation when it comes to many Ramadan campaigns or any campaigns that we're doing. It does offer that element of ambiguity so that you kind of can project things, but it's got a lot of those common like symbols in there. But you sort of saying like, what is it about the message of Ramadan that might vary from the message of Christmas, or what is it that we should be looking at when it comes to Ramadan in getting that insight into the occasion that makes it more than a bunch of trucks coming to town?
Well, for me, like it's quite a distinct thing. So Coca-Cola's Christmas campaign is a really distinctive sort of, it's like a cultural phenomenon. Everybody knows what it looks like, what it feels like. It's recognizable in a 3-second spot, never mind a 30 or 60-second spot. So, you know what it is, you know what it feels like. And then if it feels so distinctly similar to that when you're approaching Ramadan, then, it could be read like, I understand the idea of sort of community cohesion, overlapping, what unites us rather than divides us, all of that good stuff is wonderful. But at the same time, you want it to feel more specific to the audience that they're trying to, that they're trying to appeal to. Like, there's a lot of people who make Ramadan campaigns, a lot of organizations go for it. You have to make it feel sincere and not like a cynical cash grab. I'm not saying that's what it is, but at the same time, it's really, I'd like it to be more, feel more, I suppose is my thing.
Well, but like, maybe I'm wrong here, but isn't Ramadan just Muslim Christmas? Isn't that's what I've been told?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So
Totally wrong, bro. Totally wrong. Completely wrong. So far away. Oh my goodness. Christmas is Muslim Christmas. We celebrate Christmas. Christmas historically in the Christian tradition is celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Which was a prophet in the Islamic tradition. So like Christmas is Muslim Christmas. Like it's not necessarily about sort of trees and turkeys and things like that. Although I know for a fact Basit has a halal turkey delivered to his house every Christmas. It's not a similar thing. It's got quite a tight association with reflection on people less fortunate, right? So when you're fasting, the idea is you're sacrificing, right? So the idea is that you're trying to clear your mind, be more spiritually conscious, but also reflect on people around the world who've got who don't have as many wonderful things that you're blessed with, right? So that's what you're thinking from an Islamic perspective. So I wouldn't say it's Muslim. This is the thing, right? So this is what worries me, right, about campaigns like this, because then people will think like that. It's, oh, it's Ramadan, it's Muslim Christmas. If anything, Eid is Muslim Christmas, which it isn't, because I say Christmas is Christmas, Muslim Christmas. But Eid is like Eid is there's two Eids as well. Well, we could go into a whole thing here, but like, yeah. So Eid is like, if it was an Eid campaign, for example, right? If it was an Eid campaign and they pumped out this advert, then I'd be less resistant to it. But looking at it the way it is, I kind of feel like this is just a Christmas campaign with the word Ramadan sprayed across it, and it's a very pretty advert. It's very colorful. I like there's lots of things I like about it. I like some of the symbolism in there. I like a lot of the the idea of representing Muslims as a very diverse group of people. It's not just sort of one race or ethnicity. It is people literally all over the world, every shape, color, size, everything. So I do like that element of it. There's some nice nice sort of cultural touches, but the overarching vibe for me, it feels very, very Christmassy. That's my sort of take.
Well, how are you up for seeing a much more Ramadan ad? Let's play the next
Let's do it.
Wow, what an amazing ad! And who was that by? Oh, it was by Distillery. It was done at Distillery before my time, and I don't have to be complimentary about it because it was done by another creative director over in Singapore. But one thing that I do like about it, and certainly when it comes to this idea of like representing different communities, is that it's almost an exercise in subtlety and simplicity, and getting that symbol out of the crescent moon, and then making it a powerful connection to the empty bowl. How do you feel that sort of better reflects the occasion of sacrifice during Ramadan?
For me, I like that because if you look at the contrast between the two adverts there, we saw Coca-Cola, which is everyone's come around and there's a big feast. That's what we saw there. Whereas really, this is what Ramadan is, right? Ramadan is a month of sacrifice. Ramadan is a time where no one's, we're fasting, right? And that empty bowl is depicting that people are fasting. They're waiting for that call to pray, which you can hear, as we go along that journey of the advert. And then you're kind of reminded that there's people out there who pretty much are forced to fast every single day, whether it's Ramadan or not, because the bowl where we would expect food to then be in there after the call to pray, it's actually still empty. So for me, it was quite powerful. I saw the spiritual element in there. I saw the true reflection of what Ramadan means in terms of, fasting, the sacrifice of food. And then also that notion of, because charity is so important in Islam, and in Ramadan, people give by their droves. I mean, in the UK alone, over 150 million pounds is donated in that 1 month. And just seeing that empty plate kind of talks to that part of Ramadan, which is we've sacrificed, now sacrifice your wealth and let's put food on someone's table.
Well, it looks like that creative director in Singapore did a pretty good job then. So congrats to Guy. World Food Programme as well for commissioning us to make that work. So I think we've got another ad coming up. That's it.
We do indeed. So we're now going to go over to another famous brand here in the UK. You probably may shop at them. And truth be told, it was walking one of their aisles and seeing the Ramadan message, which did help inspire Friday. So let's take a look.
Not yet. Go spot the moon.
I said it's true. I can feel the love. Can you feel it too?
Green Lane Mosque has confirmed the sighting of a new moon. Eid Mubarak. Quality ingredients for special moments.
Where's Uma? There you are. It's a new moon. Eid Mubarak.
Food love stories brought to you by Tesco.
We saw that. I think that was from last year, that advert. And just to put into context, what inspired us as Friday was we walked into Tesco's during Ramadan. It said Ramadan Mubarak, and the offers were Stella Artois. And I thought, that's exactly what I need to break my fast, as a pint of lager. That's what it was. Get it right. We've got that ad. Atif, I'm going to throw it straight to you. What did you think of that ad?
Oh, there's lots I like about it. I like that it sort of tries to incorporate the messaging of like moon sighting and things like that, which is really interesting. But like sort of on a practical level, like I don't think I ever looked for the moon myself. Like moon sighting is such a difficult thing. Like you can't get mosques in the UK to agree on moon sighting. It's such an intricate art, right? So like sending this poor kid to spot the moon, the Green Lane Mosque thing on the radio, like it was just, I get it. It's sort of snapshot into a family. For what it's worth, if we think about the Coca-Cola ad, but one of the things they did really well was, incorporate loads of different sort of stress that diaspora of Islam, like different countries, different backgrounds, different cultures. It didn't quite nail that. Lots of very unhealthy food there as well, which I'm not thrilled about, because like it's a bit of a stereotype that Muslims eat like awful food when things are when fasts are broken and things like that. Which is, and then
I would pomegranates getting sprinkled at one point, so I think that's your 5 a day sorted.
Fair enough. All right, fair enough. There were some pomegranates, and maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but I did. The music was like a remix of a really popular sort of clubby track, which I don't know, like again, like we go back to the previous one. you know, with like the simplicity of like the bowl and the call to, like Basit nailed it when he talked about it, but there was also the call to prayer in the background, which I really liked. It really brought home, like, you know, this is your faith. Your faith is to give to charity and things like that. Tesco, they're offering all sorts of wonderful things that you can go and pick up and help build a feast and things like that. It's a snapshot into a family's life. It works. It sort of works. Does it speak to me as sort of as a British Muslim? I don't know. Not not as intensely as one might think, but yeah, I mean, there were things I changed about it. Moon, I don't know anybody. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Bas. Have you ever gone moon spotting?
I have, and I wouldn't be using euro for that either. So,
well, Tesco's
binoculars are
sells that as
pricey.
well, so it's really covering all the aisles. It sells the toilet roll. It sells the pomegranate. So
I didn't think of that. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. But the other thing I would like to see in that advert is a bit more diversity, I think, because it feels to me like we feel if you're brown, you're Muslim. And that's what that whole family was. It was just, you know, people from the Asian subcontinent. You know, Muslims come from the Far East. They come from North Africa. They come from Central Africa. They come from the Middle East. There's white Muslims. There's, you know, it's such a, we're not an ethnicity. It's a broad range of people. And so, you know, getting representation, have that broad depth of representation. Even in families now, you see, you know, there's a lot of mixed races within those families. I think that could have very easily have been depicted in that. But of course, I did love the shoes part because that's so real. That's so real. You do take your shoes off the minute you walk in. And I thought just to focus in on that with the shoes, I like that.
Do you know what I really like? The one thing I really like about it is that there were a ton of South Asian actors in that advert, which is great because I'll tell you what, as a South Asian trying to get into a Tesco advert is as an actor is hard work at the best of times. So this is wonderful. About 20-30 actors got a gig in that role, in that ad. I'm on board, actually. I changed my mind completely. Perfect Ramadan advert. Lots more, please, and get my agent on the phone next time they casting one of them.
Well, maybe this next campaign will help you with your next acting job. Also, for everyone that's watching, comments, questions, put them in there. We'll be answering them after we have the insights from Mana as well. So this next one is from Adidas. Press play, gods of channel.
Sporta på tom mage? Mardröm tänker du. Ja, det väntar nu fysiskt aktiva muslimer världen över. Kommer de trots det lyckas hålla sig på topp?
Du vet, jag har tänkt på en grej. Det här med fasta och träning och så här. Hur gör man båda samtidigt? Jag fattar verkligen inte hur de båda går ihop. Hur man orkar.
Vi har fått in nya rapporter om att vi ser helt makalösa insatser från muslimska atleter på flera år. Vad är det hemliga receptet? Då har vi äntligen fått svaret på vår fråga. Att med ett starkt psyke, då kommer man långt. Men med rätt förberedelser kommer man ännu längre.
So, Atif, how is your Swedish? If you're gonna be cast in that advert, you might need a bit of Duolingo on that one. But
listen, man, I like that ad so much. I would probably learn Swedish to be in the next one. Like that was just, it's very clever. It's got a very clear goal, that advert, right? It's talking about performing as an athlete, as an elite level, or just a recreational athlete during Ramadan, which I really love. Like the discussion in sports is always about elite level athletes during Ramadan. You know, how is Moeen Ali going to perform playing for England in a test match when it's Ramadan, or you know, the Olympic Games and on the same time. You know, that's usually the discussion. But there's a lot of people in the Muslim community, and I happen to know a lot of these people who play recreational sport, and they don't want to stop doing that during Ramadan, but they find the energy. They don't make excuses. They organize some things in terms of timing, It was really, really lovely. Again, I like that it's really focused, representing different communities, even though it's sort of all set within Sweden. Yeah, that was really nice, really clever, really likable advert, I thought.
Yeah, like the bit that I sort of most appreciated from it was that it had a Ramadan brief, but it didn't just rest on the idea that fast is broken and family, and there's a pious charitable angle. It digs into something deeper, which was this idea of faith and dedication, and just goes to that level that really aligns what the brand's about and the audience through the shared common ground of faith and sport. I thought it just felt a little bit more intelligent. It felt a bit more meaningful, even if I'm not Muslim or Swedish.
I mean, I've got to say, even the final caption where it's talking about, a strong mind and preparation is the key here. And really, that is the ethos of Ramadan. So if I just look at Ramadan from a spiritual perspective, the whole purpose of that month is to train us as human beings to, one, refrain from all the luxuries of life and all the greed of life. So whether that's, eating excessively, to not fall in love with our wealth, give that away to charity. So just reading that, when I watched that advert, I thought, wow, I love the ending. Because for me, just that final piece of preparing your mind. Now, I don't know whether that was done, and if they've got advisors who told them, spot on, whether that was done intentionally or whether by accident, because I think they've really captured an essence of Ramadan and what that means spiritually for a Muslim.
Well, I think I'm getting told that we need to wrap this up for the next bit, but one thing that you wouldn't have got from that ad is also the extra bit that Adidas did behind it, which is they set up these WhatsApp communities, and they set up one specifically for Swedish Muslims to give them motivation, give them tips, and connect them to pro athletes as well during that time that shared their faith and the need for training regime. So building a lot more community than just having the one-off ad in there. So I think that wraps up our ads, doesn't it? The question now is, which is your favorite? Now, in a move that's very reminiscent of COVID-19, we want you to scan a QR code and fill in a thing. I'm going to go now.
Yeah, get your phone out, please. Get voting on your favorite campaign that we've just shown. Really, really keen to hear your thoughts. And we're not completely biased towards the Moon to Plate campaign, but yes, we are.
Well, I liked how we squeezed in that one, but honestly, I did like that. I did like that WFP was certainly my favorite. Look, my thanks to Atif and Adam for your insight into those pieces. But just to carry on with the theme of insights, I'm now going to hand over to Mona, who with the insights of British Muslims when it comes to advertising during the holy month of Ramadan. Mona, over to you.
Thanks, Basit. Hi, everyone. Really enjoyed that panel. It was really great to hear all of your perspectives. And actually, a lot of the themes that you brought up were really similar to the themes that emerged from the latest piece of research that we recently commissioned. So at the end of Ramadan, Friday conducted some primary research surveying members of the British public. And we asked them about their spending habits, about their views on ethical consumption, how brands can better connect with them during key moments. We also showed them a handful of ads. So we showed them 3 ads, one from Sainsbury's, one from Tesco, and one from Coke, 2 of which you will have seen. And we asked them what mistakes advertisers make when they're trying to connect with Muslims during this holy month. And they gave us some really interesting insights. The first of which is that Muslims are not a cultural or ethnic monolith, which obviously came up in the discussion. Muslims hail from all over the world, and our research repeatedly underscored a frustration amongst consumers regarding a lack of diverse cultural and ethnic representation when it comes to this fact. Respondents highlighted that across media and advertising more broadly, Muslims from South Asian backgrounds are often overrepresented, with Arab, Southeast Asian, and specifically Black Muslims rarely seen on screen. This is something that businesses who are trying to engage Muslim consumers need to actually think about quite carefully, because it can be very easy if you're a brand or an advertiser to think that you're already ticking the kind of diversity box by including Muslims in your ads or by referencing Islamic cultural moments through marketing. But the truth is that even within this kind of quote unquote diverse niche, there are specific nuances that need to be accurately represented in order to authentically land with target audiences. And if they're not there, they're kind of noted. The second thing we heard was that they wanted to see Muslim values reflected, not just Muslim aesthetics. So a significant number of respondents stated that brands often adopt kind of the visible aesthetics of Islam, such as traditional attire, crescent moons, and other symbols to signify their engagement with the Muslim community. However, these representations often come across as somewhat superficial because they fail to capture some of the deeper, more meaningful aspects of Ramadan and Islamic practice more broadly. A couple of the most recurrent values and themes that people wanted to see reflected that they didn't feel were charity, community support, togetherness, and family. In direct contrast to this, many respondents felt that some adverts, maybe the Coke one, for instance, made Ramadan look like a time of feasting or indulgence, somewhat akin to Christmas. Whereas obviously, as has kind of been stated through the discussion already, Ramadan is quite different. It's a time of self-discipline. It's a time of spiritual reflection. It's also a time that asks Muslims to kind of refocus on things like empathy and gratitude, not merely on kind of food and festivities. So from our perspective, authenticity on this front really requires that brands move beyond just the aesthetics or use the aesthetics in a tactful and intelligent way, as a kind of vehicle through which to demonstrate their understanding of deeper Muslim values. If brands want to kind of truly, authentically connect with Muslim audiences, this is fairly obvious, but one thing we heard repeatedly was that this cannot just be confined to Ramadan. Continuous engagement builds trust, it builds loyalty, and it shows that a brand's interest in the Muslim community is genuine and not just a seasonal marketing tactic. Neglecting Muslim consumers outside of Ramadan, as most brands tend to do, can lead to feelings of alienation. It can make consumers feel that the kind of campaigns are opportunistic, and it further reinforces the perception that brands are somewhat insincere in their effort to engage. And lastly, the last thing that emerged that kind of underscores all of this was a real discomfort with the portrayal of Islam through a predominantly Western perspective, or what some people in the research called the white gaze. After viewing the ads from brands like Tesco and Sainsbury's, a number of respondents stated that they were surprised that simple, fairly obvious details were missing from those ads. For example, the lack of dates on the iftar table. All Muslims know this is a universal thing, that dates are very significant during Ramadan. A couple of people also mentioned that the portrayal of the sighting of the moon, whilst very well intentioned and pretty sweet, doesn't really accurately represent how Muslims observe this practice. And if there were Muslims in the room, perhaps Tesco could have been told that. So to avoid these pitfalls, we really advise that brands hire individuals who have a kind of deep and more reflexive understanding of Islamic norms. And then to supplement that, sort of engage in rigorous audience research to validate or invalidate their hypotheses around specific creative ideas. This includes consulting with Muslim creatives, community leaders, and influencers who can really help guide the development of campaigns, as opposed to just being a kind of face that fronts them. Unsurprisingly, kind of rounding this up, when we asked audiences what they wanted to see more of, three things emerged: authentic partnerships, continuous engagement, and truthful creative. As we've seen, engaging authentically with Muslim audiences requires a nuanced understanding of diverse cultures, values, and behaviors. And that's really where Friday comes in, because this is where we specialize. Soon, we're going to be sharing all of these insights and more in our upcoming Ramadan Wrapped report, which is a tongue twister I've had to practice many times. And in that report, you'll see kind of data and insights around everything that we've mentioned, as well as Ramadan and Eid spending, attitudes towards ethical consumption, boycotting trends, which is very topical at the moment amongst the Muslim community for obvious reasons, and a more in-depth look at core values. We'll be reaching out to all our guests after this event to give you the opportunity to sign up to receive this report from us. And we really look forward to sharing these insights with you. So thanks for listening. And I'll hand back to Steve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's really insightful, and can't wait to read that report. Before we get onto the results, we've just had a question come in over Twitter from an agency asking, what would you say to a brand who has been briefed on reaching a faith-based audience? How would they take the first step? I'm going to throw that to you, Bassett.
So I think speak to us. It's just the answer. That's the answer. I think it's really important to understand and speak to people from that faith. I think, you know, get that lived experience. I mean, that's certainly what we've found ourselves, that everyone we've spoken to, you know, everyone wants to be careful not to offend. Everyone wants to say something that isn't controversial. They want to you know, engage in an authentic manner. Really what you want to do is engage with an agency who have got that expertise. So sometimes what I find that does happen with agencies is they may have one person from that faith and then put them to the front and say, this is the person, they know everything, but they may just be a junior person. They may not have that much experience. I always say, go to people who look, breathe, live that, and they can guide you and help you with their lived insight. Because that's what you want. You want a team with lived experience and have done it over and over again.
Mm. And then in terms of you know, some of the things that came up as we were researching ads to share during this live stream, how would you get around that tokenistic element, that popping up during Ramadan? You know, it's one of the pieces that Mona really, you know, touched upon, is like that tokenism, that popping up, you know, people exist year round, not just at key moments of the year. How would you get around that tokenistic piece?
You really want to work on a year-long engagement strategy. You know, the reality is, you know, if a brand is engaging with any community, you know, and let's talk about focusing purely on the Muslim audience here, but with any audience that you're engaging with, if you just engage in that one period, like we said, is tokenistic, and people do remember that and think, oh, you remembered me then, but where were you in the rest of the year? And reality is, you've come during that period because you know there's this community and this audience will engage. They've got money to spend. Now, that money isn't just exclusive to that 1 month. What they want to do and spend will be all year round. So you want to think about engagement points and touch points throughout the entire year, and think about, even in the generic campaigns that you're running, how do you incorporate that audience within those campaigns as well? So you could do something very specific in Ramadan, but in all the other campaigns you're doing, I would look at a strategy whereby you actually incorporate aspects of those communities in your year-long campaigns as well.
And what about in terms of the current climate, you know, that we're in, especially in the marketing and, you know, advertising space, budgets are tight. How would you bring that back to business value?
I'll pass it to Mona. Mona, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of our core kind of tenets at Friday is that investing in diverse audiences is an investment for the future. Like, you know, the world is getting increasingly more diverse, and it's no longer a niche strategy. It's no longer the periphery of society. Diverse audiences are at the center of society. They're embedded in society. And so if you're trying to future-proof your business, it's a really core and essential thing that you do, not only to reach out to those audiences, like Basit said, not only to engage with them continuously, but to actively speak to them. And like I said in the research, to validate or invalidate the things that you think about them. One of the things that we really encourage at Friday is not just taking our word for it. A lot of us are Muslims who work on the team, and therefore we have our own perspectives, but we aren't, you know, fully representative of, you know, Gen Pop or Gen Pop Muslims. And so one of the things that we always make sure that we do is, if we have an idea, we validate that through research, because yeah, doing so is kind of a great investment for us and for brands going forward.
Amazing, thank you. Shall we move on to the results?
Now, earlier we asked you which of the adverts you really like. This is so biased, but this is good. This is good. I should have got it, because this is a true reflection. And, you know, I assure you, everyone here is neutral. But the WFP, which Distillery did, which I do concur, was the best one. That staggering 63% of us really like that. Adidas 26%, so a quarter of us. Coke 10%. And which ones? Tesco. Nobody liked the Tesco ad out of our participants today. But I guess, you know, there were some good ads there to compete against, and I guess maybe that subtlety of WFP, and, you know, the plate changing from, was it sunlight to sunset and no food coming in? I think that really struck an emotional chord. So I think that probably explains that. And again, you know, I think people didn't like the moon sighting part. Possibly that's why Tesco isn't there. But really interesting. Atif, what was your thoughts on that? Because that's quite staggering.
I think it's fair. I think just on sort of first viewing, I think most people would agree with that. I'd go back to that. I mean, if you think about everything that came out of the research that Muna shared, that's all that Muslims really want. It's not an unreasonable request. Like when somebody's marketing a product to you based on your spiritual belief, right? On your religious belief, the least thing that they can offer you is a little bit of an understanding of it, right? Like, I mean, if you're selling me shoes and you say, listen, you want to run, these are the shoes for you. I want to run, these are the shoes. It makes sense. If you're trying to appeal to me on a more spiritual basis, it's got to feel really sincere. And that's the one thing that I think the bowl advert that achieved. Like, it felt really sincere, it felt on point, it wasn't overdressed, it didn't have too much, it wasn't trying to accomplish too much. And to a lesser extent, I think Adidas did the same thing. It had a really specific focus. It was really it wasn't trying to focus on iftar or the process of breaking a fast or process of setting a fast or moon sightings or the various shapes of samosas and things like that. It was really, really tailor focused on athletes and working out and how people have that determination during the month of Ramadan. You feel sort of even more, you feel you're more focused in a strange way. So yeah, I think that's fair. I'd go along with all those results. I guess there's a few animation fans who enjoyed the Coke one. I thought it was about, if I'm honest, I thought it was about on par with Tesco. The dates being missing was like, I don't think I mentioned that myself, but it came up in the research, right? When I brought it up, the dates being missing is kind of like, that's like, if you're going for that and you don't have the dates there, I understand somebody might have had like a conversation, some creative director probably thought, well, they're doing Eid, right? So maybe they won't have dates. So I sort of have some sympathy for that way of thinking, but at the same time, like it just them not being there at all was like, I mean, we have dates on Eid, there's loads left over from Ramadan. People gift you. Dates are like the most commonly given gift in Ramadan, I think. So if you're a supermarket, you want to push those.
On the last day of Ramadan, what I'm going to do with this date milkshake is what we did.
That's the one. Date milkshake. Yeah.
There is, of course, time for Q&A. So I know people have been popping their questions in the chat box, and I think we've got a question from Soraya. Let's see. Soraya's question was, how do you deal with criticisms around faith campaigns and further improve for future campaigns? So how do you deal with criticism around faith campaigns and further improve for future campaigns? Let's throw that to, actually, I'm going to come to Mona, and then we'll go to Adam as well. So Mona, then Adam.
Sure. I think I've heard this from other clients in the past when they say things like, oh, if we're creating an ad that targets Muslims, doesn't that alienate other audiences, or doesn't that feel like we're focusing in and kind of ignoring other people? I don't necessarily see that to be the case. I think often when you're being targeted or speaking to a specific audience, people can view that as a slight. But broadly, I think it speaks to inclusivity to a brand, which generally kind of works in your interest. In terms of making campaigns better, I think the core thing that we really emphasize at Friday is using great research. So, having surveys, running focus groups, showing people creative and getting them to actively feed into it so that it feels like a collaborative process, so that it feels like co-creation, so that it's not just us or like a team of isolated individuals who are saying, we think this is really good, we're going to put it out into the world. We want it to be a collaborative process where we're speaking to people who have experiences that are slightly different to our own, to make sure that the creative kind of lands and feels relevant and resonates to as many people as possible. So I would always say research. I'm a very research heavy person, so maybe other people will have other perspectives on that.
I'd echo those thoughts completely, Mana. I think from a sort of creative point of view, having that element of curiosity, inquiry as well, like either that being formal through research or more ad hoc, and also humility to know the things that you don't know. I think if I was in a client's pair of shoes and they don't have that first-hand experience of being Muslim, also don't be afraid to be a bit bold as well. I think you kind of see that with once that insight gets beyond the sort of surface level, it becomes a lot more of an ad that connects with people and a campaign that connects with people. So just take that time to dig deep and don't don't play it too safe, because you're never going to be playing it dangerous if you make it with people that have the real insight. So yeah, be bold and don't do it in Swedish.
And so I think, yeah, that's it. Stick to English. It works. I've got a question about social. Actually, I'm going to throw this to Artif, this question, because it's about social media. I know you're very social media savvy, sir. I know you're very social media savvy. And the question is, how can brands leverage digital platforms, including social media, to authentically engage with Muslim audiences?
I think it's really easy. You sort of look at what Muslims are interested in. Look at and again, it just goes back to listening and engaging with the community, right? If you're making a commercial or a campaign for the Muslim audience, like, talk to them. What would you like to see? What do you dislike? I mean, the question that Soraya sent in was quite a poignant one. But it's again one with a very straightforward answer. If you've made a campaign, there's been negative impacts around it. Listen to that negative feedback, and what are they saying? What did people dislike? Did it feel inauthentic? I imagine that's the biggest critique that will come from Muslims, is it didn't feel authentic. It felt insincere, right? It felt like it's bandwagon jumping. They're the critiques that I would foresee in these kind of campaigns and things like that. On social media, again, you got to focus on short form content. So again, my advice would be to keep things very, very focused. Like, it's complex. Ramadan, trying to surmise it all, and Eid, of course, trying to surmise it all in a 30-second clip isn't going to work for you. Pick a specific aspect of it. Try and do it as sincerely as possible, and if possible, talk to a Muslim who engages with Ramadan, who's like spiritually, connected to Ramadan, who would guide you a little bit, because it's not. I don't think it's massively complicated personally, and just make it fun. Like, have some fun with it. Like was just said, like, do take some risks, have some fun, like do something creative and interesting. People always gravitate towards that.
Although the question is talking about Muslim customers, I think this is quite generic, and I think you'd be ideal for this. And the question is, how important is it for brands to have feedback mechanisms in place, and what are the effective ways to implement them?
Is that for me? Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Steve.
Sorry.
I direct it to Steve, but I think Steve might be on mute. There we go. There. Yeah.
So I guess from my point of view, I think it's about understanding why a brand is playing in a certain space. So, for example, at the moment, Pride season has just kicked off, and I sit on a board called Advertising, and we lobby the advertising and marketing industry to make more inclusive work and more inclusive organizations. And I think, there's so much of what we've talked about today that really does align with Pride season and the LGBTQ plus community. And it's a lot of our advice is around understanding why you're playing in the space, why you are popping up during Pride, making sure that you're visible all year round, ensuring that you've got people from the community as part of the creative process who are making the work, and you're involving the community. So in terms of that feedback loop, if you have involved the community in the creation of your work, they're not only sort of behind the scenes, they're also looking at the work before it goes live. In many ways, a lot of the risk and the risk mitigation to your brand, the work should feel authentic. The work should land, and that feedback loop should be very much tightened. But you should also have a plan in place, just in case you are playing on social. Twitter is a very interesting place to be, and you've got to be ready to have the proof's got to be in the pudding. You've got to be backing up what you're saying. There's no point in popping up certain times of the year and then not being alongside the community for the rest of the journey.
Thanks, Stephen. And our final question I'm going to throw to Mona. And Mona, the question is, how can brands incorporate authentic storytelling that resonates with the Muslim values and experiences?
Basit, you're going to make me sound like a broken record because I'm saying the same thing every time, which is you need to speak to Muslims. You do. It really is kind of the catch-all answer for this. And it doesn't just apply to Muslims. It applies to whatever your kind of target audience group is. But I think it's specifically relevant to Muslims because when we were trying to source adverts for this webinar, there aren't that many. I think it's a great thing that brands are trying, but it's a burgeoning area, and it's there is some engagement, but there isn't enough. And I think part of that is there's a reticence, there's a bit of a fear, and I think a lot of that can be kind of alleviated if brands take the time to, as Steve said, engage with communities, speak to agencies or partners who are specialists in this area, who can help guide them through that process and tell them what kind of counts as authentic storytelling versus very kind of generic storytelling. I think the example that we were talking about yesterday was the moon sighting one, right? Which is like, we don't do that. It's very sweet, but we don't do that. What we actually do is we check our WhatsApp like 50 times the day before Eid or 50 times the day before it's Ramadan, because somebody's going to send you a broadcast and that's how you're going to find out. That's a much more authentic representation of how Muslims find out, about whether Eid or Ramadan is coming. They find out through a messaging mechanism or through, refreshing their phone or checking Twitter or whatever. That's the modern way that it's done. And I think, speaking to people and asking them how they conduct their daily lives and what those norms are can just go a really long way to creating creative that feels super authentic and grounded in reality, as opposed to sort of strange generic ideas of what you think Muslims do or like.
And thank you to everybody on the panel today, to Adam, to Atif, to Mona, and I say to Steve, but Steve, you're our host today, so we can't. I'm gonna let you do the parting words. I wish I could carry on. I wish we could keep going because I'm having a lot of fun here right now. But I think we have gone over our allotted time. But that's only because people are enjoying this. Now on that screen, you've got your QR code. So if you do want to know more, if you have more questions, any insight you want about the Muslim world and Muslim audiences that you're trying to engage with, do scan that QR code. You can get in touch with us, and we'll be more than delighted to help you on that journey. But with that, I'll pass back to Steve to say some final closing words.
Thank you so much, Basit, and thank you to all of our amazing panelists. And thank you for joining us at home or the office or wherever you're joining us from. So we're going to send a roundup with a recording and links to the report and the ads that we've looked at. So please do give Friday and Distillery a follow through the links in the comments. And we'll be back in July with another Wrapped. So join us on social. And thank you very much again for joining us. See you next time. Thanks, everyone.